will repeat the entire motion. Thank you, Attorney Bruno. Everyone is on. I will say good afternoon, and we are ready to begin this afternoon's special board meeting. The special school board meeting of July 23rd, 2020 is now called to order, and the time is 1:58 p.m. Following the recommendation of Governor DeSantis and the Florida Department of Education, this meeting will be held virtually, streamed live, and will be posted to the district YouTube channel upon completion of this meeting. Please note that the chat feature has been turned off for this virtual meeting. We would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her highest personal potential and the district's vision to be a world-class school system. This afternoon's agenda includes public comment, one item under Superintendents Recommendation, and 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. And second, please, Mrs. Jordan. Thank you. Please record your vote.
Madam Chair, you're going to have to accept my voice vote because I'm not signed into board docs, so that's an aye for me.
Okay, thank you.
Same for me. I need to log.
Okay. And Jennifer, can you tell me if you got the other votes recorded?
Motion passes, ma'am, 7-0.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Dupree Bruno, do you have any comments that were submitted electronically or persons in attendance in the boardroom who wish to speak?
There are electronic comments, emails, and we have one speaker, so I'll go ahead and read. The school board policy provides the opportunity at this point of the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you completed a card and submitted it before the meeting began, you will be called in the order that the card was submitted. The board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the end of the public comment period, the board chair will address the assignment of any concerns, and those attending the meeting are expected to act in a respectful manner. Attacks on individuals or abusive comments are prohibited. In addition to clapping, booing, hissing are prohibited. Speakers who fail to follow rules regarding those should be ruled out of order. Any speaker continuing with such remarks will be required to relinquish the lectern. At this time, will the first speaker please step forward? And if you could please state your name. And then
I'm Angela Nichols. Can you all hear me? Do you hear
yes.
me? I'm Angela Nichols. I live in Southwest Cape. I have 3 boys in the public elementary system, one of them with special needs. And I'm here today to talk about the motion to postpone or delay school opening. I don't know what you can do in 2 or 3 weeks that you haven't been able to do in 5 months, but it is ridiculous to be asking parents at the last minute to continue making arrangements for their children when we have an agreement that schools will teach our children during the school year. I have a couple facts I'd like to cite and some data sets that would be worth looking at when it comes to the transmission from children to other children or their adults. So one moment. In the Pediatrics Journal, which is the official journal of American Academy of Pediatricians, entitled COVID-19 Transmission and Children, the Child is Not to Blame, They quote a study of a 9-year-old boy in France who had contact with 80 classmates over 3 schools, and there were no known secondary infections. There was a Dutch study called The First Few Hundred that showed no cases of introduction to the family from children under 12. And in New South Wales, Australia, 9 students and 9 staff members tested positive for COVID across 15 schools with 735 students and 128 staff, and there was only 2 secondary infections. Those numbers are staggering when you're talking about delaying the education of nearly 100,000 students. There is no data, death rates, all of our local data sets are trending down according to Brian Hammond last post. There's no reason to continue to make these delays, and there's no reason to believe you can do anything in 3 weeks that you couldn't do in 5 months. I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening. I hope you guys will seriously consider voting down this recommendation.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals for public comment that are inside the chambers? At this time, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, I'll speak with regards to the virtual public comment. Pursuant to Executive Order 2069 in the Department of Education Directives dated March 17, 2020, notice was provided to the public that all public comment will be accepted virtually by email. Virtual submission of public comment was required to be sent to the email address publiccomment@leeschools.net at least 2 hours prior to this afternoon's meeting, and they are limited to 3,000 characters or 450 words to be inconsistent with Board Policy 1.11, subsection 5A, allotting a 3-minute maximum per comment. Madam Chair, the first email we have is from Ileana Rojas. How do you pretend parents choose an option to go back to school without enough information about the different options? Excuse me. The district had explained unsatisfactory the models, specifically how to go to face-to-face model. How can you ensure kids go to be safe at school, on the bus, restrooms? You said you are going to disinfect more frequently. Have you enough personnel to be able to do that? Virtual model cannot be effective for everybody, but as a parent, we felt that the school district is pushing us to virtual. What's going to happen with special education students? If choosing virtual, kids don't go to be served okay. Face-to-face can be dangerous for some kids. What's going to happen with students in high school that are in a working program? What options have kids that this going to be their last year, turning 22 next year, if they are at high risk to go face-to-face, but otherwise they are going to lose a year of service? This is anonymous. I am in shock to see that although the governor's order clearly waives the 180 days for students' attendance for the 2021 school year, the proposed calendar is adding the days to the end of the year. I ask you to please consider the impact of students who work over the summer and count on the money for college, etc., and for the huge amount of students that take college summer classes. Seniors typically graduate in May, so then can either head off to college, take summer sessions of college courses, or work to be able to pay for college. If you add these days that could easily be waived to the calendar, these students will again be negatively affected. The reason for allowing waiver is to provide flexibility and limit damage. There is no other district in the area that added the days back on the end of the calendar. Collier, Sarasota, and Charlotte are delaying opening, but with no effect to the calendar other than moving the quarter end dates back to even out the weeks per quarter. There is no benefit for adding days on the end of teachers who are already to get back and plan. They need the time on the front of the calendar, not the end. Let them start on the 10th. Be ready for our kids on the 24th or 31st and waive the student days. Please don't add more disruption to these students, especially the high school level. This is anonymous. Neighboring county, Sarasota, oh, sorry, that was the same email. This is from Laura Tishy Smith. For the utmost safety and well-being of the children of Lee County, as well as that of their families, I respectfully implore the school board to vote in favor of pushing back the start date of 2020-21 school year to August 31st. In recognition of the weeks of hard work that the school reopening committee did to develop a safe plan for reopening, that was then destroyed by the state education commissioner's sudden edict that all schools had to open at 100% capacity 5 days a week. The school board needs to replace those lost weeks with adequate time for the reopening committee to develop a new safety plan in light of the education commissioner's demands. This must be done in order to safeguard our children, their families, and our community. Lou Navarra. I would urge you not to open schools at the end of the month. We can err on the side of safety and take Dr. Fauci's advice, not Dr. Trump, who just said at his press briefing that things will get worse with COVID-19 before it gets better. I propose to wait till January, as we can see by then just what the pandemic is doing. All lives matter. Children, race, color, and creed. Let's not lose a child. Madam Chair, that concludes the public comments.
Thank you, Attorney Bruno. I apologize. I have a lot of noise out there. Okay, so I'll reserve comments till later on. At this time, we'll turn it over to Dr. Atkins to entertain his recommendation for the approval of the revised 2021 instructional calendar. Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just before I get to the recommendation, I just want to comment that as we look forward to reopening schools this fall, we continue to really evaluate the reopening decision against important health metrics from our medical and also our health experts. We have looked to guidance of these specific metrics, as well as looking at our degree of preparedness of our school staff and actually our school buildings to prepare these schools to open safely for our students this fall. So looking at the health metrics at this time and taking into consideration the degree of our preparedness at this time, I believe it would be prudent to extend our reopening date. And for that reason, as you know, I asked the calendar committee to convene and provide a new recommendation regarding the school calendar, and that recommendation you have been provided. And that new recommendation has a reopening date of August 31st, and that is in hopes that we see improvement in terms of our metrics and the trend data that we are looking at, as well as being as prepared as we possibly can be for the reopening of school. So in the meantime, we will continue to work with our medical experts and our local health department so that we can reopen schools safely as possible for our students and also our staff. So the recommendation, and again, this comes from the calendar committee, and the calendar committee is a contractual committee that's comprised of 24 members, 12 from management and 12 from our labor association. We also have community members that are part of that decision-making process. They've recommended the calendar that you have in front of you. So the recommended action is approval of the revised 2020-21 instructional calendar as presented, and board authorization for the superintendent to amend as needed for the general welfare, health, and safety of students due to the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Madam Chair, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. that the board approve the revised 2021 instructional calendar. Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation? Mrs. Gittens, will you unmute?
Yes, I'm sorry. I have a question because on November 5th, when we voted to accept the calendar, wasn't that for 20 and 21? And in it, it states that the board authorizes the superintendent to amend as needed in the event of declared emergency. Wouldn't this stand for that? Therefore, we would not have to re-vote. And I'm not sure about that. I was just asking if Attorney Bruno would like to comment on that.
Thank you. Attorney Bruno, will you please weigh in on?
I think that, so Ms. Gibbons, you're saying that there was a prior vote with regards to the 2021 calendar, and in that vote, there was, he could change the dates based on a declared emergency.
It reads, and I quote, approval of 2021 instructional calendar as presented and board authorization for the superintendent to amend as needed in the event of a declared emergency.
And what was the date of that, Ms. Gittens?
November 5th, 2019.
I will have to look at that and pull that up.
It's on board docs.
This was for the 2021 school year?
Yes. It's on board docs if any of the board members want to look at it as well. If you go into...
Chair, I'm going to need to have a couple of minutes to pull that up and review that agenda item. Or the board can just decide to vote on this 2020-2021 calendar, or I have to look at what she's talking about. I'm not sure. I have to look at that.
Board members can, okay. Do we want to just in the interest of time, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, do we just want to go ahead and vote on this recommendation of the superintendent today, which is connected with the reopening of school and the date specific?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the superintendent's recommendation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Mrs. Vaughn?
A second.
Thank you. Okay, so moved by Mrs. Patrica and seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Any discussion? Ms. Patrica? Oh, I'm sorry.
I clicked the wrong button. Ms. Gittens, I appreciate you bringing that up, but I do think it's important for major decisions like this to be laid on the table for board discussion and for board vote. So it might be ceremonial, but at the same time, I think it's important for us to discuss this. I did send some questions to the superintendent this morning. The first is, what does this do in terms of interruption to teacher pay, if anything?
To respond to that question, I know Dr. Pruitt is here as well. We worked real hard in terms of teacher pay to not cause a disruption at pay. They are actually working during the pay period, and because we have had in the past, this past year, been paying in arrears, we do have the capability to go back to not paying in arrears and paying for time work. So they're working during the second half of August, and so that they would be working during that particular pay period.
Okay, so teachers will not go without pay for a period of time, is that?
That's correct.
Okay, good. My other question was, why did we add dates onto the end of the year as opposed to taking days away from Thanksgiving, winter break, spring break, that sort of thing?
I'll ask Dr. Pruitt to respond if there's anything. I would say this, I know we had a quick debrief after the calendar committee, and they really felt that because the reopening of school is likely to be relatively rocky, because we still have a high incidence of the virus in the area, and so the need to quarantine and the transition of students that will likely be happening during this period of time from virtual distance learning to the face-to-face environment, and back and forth as we have a transition with the quarters and so forth. We felt that the committee felt that the Thanksgiving break, the winter break intact would give our teachers and our students an opportunity to kind of recoup from all of that. In addition to that, I know that they felt that the professional duty days, if they were put to the front end of this particular calendar, which is what this is proposing to do, that it would give our teachers more time to be prepared as we start the school year. And with the advent of technology and grading systems and so forth, you don't need as much time on those professional duty days to do that you used to in the past, when we used to do it by pencil, to actually figure grades in those, and therefore moving it to the front part of the calendar made the most sense. So Dr. Pruitt, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like me to add there that I missed as an important point.
I think just that there was a long, healthy debate around this topic, and that there really was a passionate plea on behalf of primarily, the school-based folks about managing between and balancing between the needs of the students and the needs of the staff, relative to needing that time, as you said, to kind of get that break and get away from things. And so that was why the decision was made that way, and actually was initially presented, the duty day option, and moving those to the front was actually a recommendation from the teachers on the committee. So yeah, I guess I want to stress the point that there was a lot of lengthy discussion around the holidays.
All right, and I can accept that. I can appreciate that. We did receive an email today about a teacher that's concerned about not having those professional duty days spread out throughout the year, given the extra work you have to do for report cards and preparing for the end of a quarters. And you just addressed that concern. My last question is, in reading the minutes, I saw a lot of analysis of the 31st start date, but I didn't see any discussion of the 24th start date. Was that sort of not discussed because of what you just said about sort of the plea by teachers and staff to push it back to the 31st?
Well, actually, that was the first decision that was made and the first discussion that occurred, whether to look at, which dates to look at between the 24th and the 31st. And the comment was that since the governor had made the statement that it needs to be brick and mortar, face-to-face, 5 days a week, that to choose that latest date that would allow us to still be in compliance with what the governor has requested, that is why. So there was discussion around that, and that was the first decision that was made.
Excellent. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Patrica. Okay, now we have Ms. Vaughn.
Thank you. I will be supporting this calendar for several reasons. One of them has already been discussed about the teacher salary, and it really, teachers, even in regular school years, never have enough time to really get all the ducks in the row and all of the things that need to happen. And this is a unique year, and I think they're going to need every one of those days. So preparation. People have mentioned things about testing and the end of the year and that sort of thing. I have not looked at the testing schedule for the AP and ACE and IB tests, but I can tell you, unless it's really changed, I recall times when my seniors who, for instance, my last year of teaching, my seniors who were in ACE literally had to come back to the school after graduation. So as you know, if you study and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the school year for other areas of the country. For instance, pretty much the whole Northeast typically goes back to school after Labor Day and goes into the first couple weeks of June. So I think we're going to be in sync with that. And I don't think it's really going to affect college summer school or orientations for college and those kinds of things. And if the testing for some of our advanced coursework, the exams for those are like they've been in prior years, it'll actually be better for them. And thirdly, no one will believe, nobody can believe that in the next few weeks, we're going to turn this thing around and be at the numbers of COVID infections in Florida. But more importantly, we need to be looking at our county, because there are plenty of counties in Florida, and typically they're the smaller counties, that there's not going to be a problem for them to open full brick and mortar schools. I've looked at the data. I haven't looked at Lee County in the past several days, but as of a few days ago, we were number 8 and steady in the state for numbers of infections. And so I'm not sure where where Brian Hammond got his information, but information coming out of Lee Health indicates that they are calling for more staff because they are pretty full. However, the good news is that after all these months of, from the top, the president to our governor, anyway, from the president to local, not sure where the governor stands on this, people are coming around to the masks. I just saw an interview on TV today, and wearing the mask, from what I've read and listened to on TV, even in these next few weeks, it's not going to eliminate the threat. We're not going to be where we need to be, but hope to God that we at least take that upward curve and give it a downward trajectory, which will make everybody feel better. So those are the reasons why I'm supporting this, and I commend the calendar committee for doing this. And I agree with Ms. Patrica that even if this is ceremonial vote, that it's important for everybody to hear why we are supporting this. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Vaughn. At this time, we will call on Ms. Gittens and then Mrs. Giovanelli.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, I agree that we need to have this meeting to understand and to voice any questions or concerns and make sure that we understand. I was just making this statement about that it is actually the superintendent's decision, and I agree with you, Ms. Patrica, that this is very important and we need to have this discussion. A couple of things, the main issues that I hear from parents are about procedures as opposed to about the process itself of the choosing your choices and all that to go back. The main issue is, if I choose this, how safe is my child going to be? What are you going to do to make sure that they're safe? Yesterday, after the Golisano town hall, and I hope you all had an opportunity to see that, or it's very good to watch. And I know I got a lot of calls and messages about that one, because the doctor at one point said that he would feel comfortable sending his child back. If you only heard that piece, not the rest of it, then you could go off on a tangent. He did say, with one, being confident that parents have the child wearing a mask at all times, social distancing, hand washing, and cohorts of 10 to 11 students. So there's a caveat to people saying that Golisano says we could go back tomorrow. The other thing is the teachers, again, policies and procedures. The teachers that have spoken to me are concerned about what are their procedures. And questions like the quarantine, if how long and how many and all. And we know that we will work accordingly with the health department. But I'm just saying that those are the main things. The thing as far as finishing on the 17th of June, I've got a lot of people saying why so late, and that was already mentioned. So with the calendar committee, I did bring up, because I'm the liaison to that committee, so I was in that meeting. And one of the things that I did bring up was with the models that we have a potential at the end of the first quarter to have an influx of more students coming in if things have changed. And we did discuss that in the meeting. And we really need to keep that uppermost in mind, because if we start out a year and you've got 11 or 12 students per teacher, at the end of the quarter or the semester, the leave virtual or the be home students come back, you've all of a sudden now got a bigger class for that teacher. And anyone, the teachers realize that when you add one student to a class, it adds to your workload, much less adding 5 or 6 more. So that is something that I hope we really keep in mind for the teacher's sake, because we end one quarter and then we start right immediately the very next week. So I'm hoping that our administrators and all will make sure that we support our teachers during that transition time with additional students. And basically, I agreed with the calendar because I felt we weren't ready. We didn't have all the policies and the procedures in place to just send kids back at this point. However, my concern is the achievement gap. And I do have to bring up the fact that the most heavily affected are the minorities and the lower socioeconomic, which is a large portion of our district. I am concerned about that and concerned about the achievement gap. And we have some students that have been out since March the 13th and didn't really participate a lot in the digital learning, and then we were out for summer. So my suggestion as well, if we're going to go ahead and do the 31st, that after that first week the teachers are back, then we need to do something to help our parents and our families with extra resources or assistance. We did digital learning already, so maybe starting a similar thing so that students can be reading and kind of getting back into the flow, and not just on the 31st or saying to them, now you got another month, and just students like, okay, well, let me sit back by the pool or, ride my bike. That time we need to think hard about how we can put some resources in the hands of our parents and our students. So when we do get back on the 31st, if indeed that is the time, that we really need to know that they're not going to be so far behind. I spoke with one parent that talked about even doing some of the assessments or whatever, or iReady or something that can help students to get back in the mode, and therefore it's not so hard when they do come back. And I think that's, and the reason is too, with getting into some of the digital learning, because who knows, down the road, we may have a class where they have to leave school because of, the virus. So they've already kind of started on the digital, and then they go to face-to-face. It's not as hard to go back and forth between the two. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Gittens, Mrs. Giovanelli, and then Ms. Jordan.
Hi, am I unmuted? It doesn't look like it. Okay.
I hear you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Giovanelli.
Okay, good. Hi. So thank you. I actually have a lot of questions, and I'm going to piggyback off of what Ms. Gittens said. I am too concerned that we're not prepared. I want to make sure that we will be prepared if we weren't prepared by the 10th, which was my concern in July 7th, will we be prepared and ready by the 31st? So that's a really important because our children and our staff is our most precious assets right now. And it's going to be, so March 13th is a long time that students have not been in the classroom, and many want to be back in the classroom. So it's vital that we've given these options for families. So I really support the plan that the superintendent has put in place. It's vital that we have options that they can do virtual or face-to-face or homeschool or the Lee Home Connect. My other concern is for the teachers. They have a million questions. I know that they're going to have opportunity on the 24th, which is tomorrow, but they're concerned over they're losing the planning time. They said that's very vital for them. And I know that the governor allowed a waiver for the 180 days. So, I think we there's a reason for that. So I think he did not. That's not true because they're saying, I've had people tell me that, more than one actually. Dr. Pruitt? She's saying no, so.
Sorry. The order, Ms. Giovanelli, and I'll be able to advise you.
Yeah, our understanding at this
okay.
that nothing has been waived related to instructional time, that students are going to be expected to have the same amount of instructional hours and minutes that they have had to have.
Yeah, Giovanelli, I wanted to echo kind of what Dr. Pruitt said and add to it a little bit. If you look at the emergency order that was put out by Commissioner Corcoran, there is language in there that does talk specifically what you're speaking about, a waiver in terms of the 180 days. But then that was followed up by a meeting with the Department of Education with the chancellor put on. And when you actually look at the number of minutes and hours that you need to put in the seat time requirement, as far, from our understanding, that is something that remains in force. Now, I will say there are other districts, let's say our neighbor to the south, Collier County. One of the reasons I wanted to move us to a longer high school day was because that puts more minutes in the day. We were not able to do that this year. Collier County has those additional minutes, so when it comes to emergencies like this or hurricanes, it gives them more flexibility in terms of that seat time because any given day, they have more minutes in the seat than students do in Lee County. So, in the future, at some point when we're beyond this, we will need to revisit that issue. But that's one of the reasons why for us, we don't have the flexibility like some districts do because our high school students don't put those number of minutes in the day like some of our other districts. And also, if I could find, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because, well, I was going to bring up the instructional time, so you actually, you did it for me, so thank you, because that was something I was going to ask. So I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
The other thing that I want to talk to about in terms of the degree of preparedness, this document that I have right here is what I've been referring to. This is our toolkit. It was 65 pages. We've been able to pull this down to a little bit more reasonable amount. But I think when this document, which we hope to get out this evening, we definitely want to get it out in front of our employee Q&A session tomorrow. I think this will answer a lot of the questions for a lot of our folks. And then even with this, we're learning to be agile. So we'll get this out there, people will beat it up, and we'll make refinements to it moving forward. But I think in terms of all the safety precautions that we have moving forward, it's going to be in that document, and I think that will help alleviate some of the concerns that are there. I also believe that just getting the systems in place to make all of that happen, this additional time is going to help us. And tomorrow, for that Q&A session, that is going to be Facebook Live. So our employees can tune in, but it also is going to be really available for everybody. So anybody else who wants to tune into that Facebook Live, they can get some of their other questions answered, particularly as it relates to how schools are going to operate when we reopen in the fall.
What
And I think-
time is that tomorrow? What time is that tomorrow?
It is, I'll tell you in just a second here, it is at 1 o'clock tomorrow.
I do want to add, though, just to make sure that there is not an expectation, some information that will not be in that toolkit are probably related to some of the communication and concerns that you're receiving from staff. And those are questions such as, if I want to do leave virtual, but I work at, Trafalgar Middle, what are my options and how can I do that? And these are all bargainable issues. And so we're currently working with the union and trying to determine what that process is going to be. It's going to be a very, very complicated puzzle, because what we're going to have to do is, once we get all the parent, what they want to do and what their choices are, then what we're going to have to do in human resources is literally go school by school, working with those principals to figure out if they have the appropriate staffing based on the makeup of their staff. So if I have at a school, 50% of the parents want to be face-to-face and 50% of the parents want to be Leave Home Connect and or Leave Virtual, I then have to go match that up with the teachers and say, do I have the staff makeup in order to serve those families? And if not, then what I need to do is figure out from a district perspective how we're going to move those teachers around, but still allow them the property rights to the job that they currently have. And so you're probably getting a lot of that. And then we also have to work through, going to have to be the documented process. If I'm a teacher and I'm requesting an ADA accommodation due to my health conditions, what are my options? What are my options if I choose Leave Home Connect for my children? And is that an option for me as a teacher, or am I going to have to go teach face-to-face? So as you can imagine, there's a lot of pieces to this. And so I feel that it's very important that we hammer out all of those issues before we ask staff to commit to what their choices are, because they need to be fully informed. And so the toolkit is the first step in that, because that does lay out the protocols about what a lot of the questions are. What if someone needs to, if someone tests positive, what's the process? What are the cleaning? Like, those things will be available in the toolkit, but the specifics on if I'm a teacher or a paraprofessional, how do I understand my options? That there will be an addendum to the toolkit, which will be specific to human resources, which will have those answers. And our target date for accomplishing that is the end of next week. And then we would, the following week, start communicating with our staff and letting them know what their options are. So I just wanted to be clear about that, because I know you all are getting communication, as I am, and as Dr. Atkins is, about, what are my options if I'm a staff member.
Actually, yes, we're getting lots of questions. Like, I just had one regarding if they were on family leave, family medical leave for 3 weeks, and then can they come back? They need to know,
Right.
need to know, it's like a chess game. If they do this, can they do that?
Right.
So it's navigating through, and there's all different scenarios. So it's like, and it's probably impossible to think of every scenario. I can assure you're going to get a curveball
Right.
at you for some, no matter what. So that we're just not quite prepared for or ready for. So I just think we just need to have. My concern is for the teachers and the students. And putting them back in the classroom. Ever how that is for their family, that best suits them, and the sooner the better. And I watched the Golisano town hall. It was excellent. So we do have to listen to the healthcare professionals, because I'm certainly not that. But their priority is that even the mental health aspect of this risk is far greater than even the virus aspect. So we have to keep that in mind. We're in the business to educate children. And so that has to be our number one priority for everyone. And for me, this year is going to be probably another like last year, and it's going to be very different. And we need to use all our resources to educate these students. If we have to pull some of the tax money to make the school safer, I think we need to do that. If we have to cut corners somewhere else just to keep the classrooms going, if we have to hire additional teachers, if we have to, I want to make sure that people understand that if they get COVID in the middle of teaching, that they'll be paid through their time out. I want them to be assured that they will not lose their home because of this COVID crisis. And so it's vital that everyone feels comfortable, because I think we can move forward as a district a lot easier when we all feel a little rest assured. And I think that perfect example, honestly, I'm ready to get back into at the dais with Miss Patrica and lead by example and be there. And if we have to wear masks to do it safely, I'm ready, even though I don't like them. But I'm ready. So I just want the community to know that we're looking at every possibility to make sure that we get back to school, because that's what we're here for, to do that. And we don't want to delay it if we don't have to, but we want to do it for the safety of everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, and that is our goal, Ms. Giovanelli, is to make sure we're clear about what the options are and what is, allowable by state and federal law and by labor standards and family medical leave and American disability. So all of those options are going to be included in the things that we're going to look at and come to, compile all that so that the employees have it. Because, we also have to think beyond the 31st, because to your point, and to Ms. Gitten's point, at the 9 weeks and at the semester, staff may have to be agile. We may have, depending on what the numbers are and the positivity rates, we may have an influx of families that decide at the 9 weeks that they want to come back to face, and I'm going to have to be able, in a day, adjust the staff and assist schools to adjust their staff, because let's not forget, in all of this, I'm still expected to comply with certification statutes, with out-of-field statutes, and so as I'm having to figure out how to move teachers around the district, I still have to make sure that I'm, for the most part, in compliance to the best of our ability as it relates to all of those statutes. So we do have to think, because I know they're going to want those answers about what happens at 9 weeks, what happens at the semester. And so, yes, very much to your point, I share your concern, and our goal is to get there and get that information out by the end of next week.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt. Okay. Mrs. Giovanelli, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, not yet. Not quite. So I had one question for Dr. Pruitt. Do we know when state testing is? Because that was another question I had on my notes here.
So
when how that will that look like? Yeah.
As of right now, the state testing dates and windows have not changed, and that was a part of our discussion at the calendar committee, and looking at the spring break and some other things to see which would be most advantageous to students and get as much learning time in as we could prior to the testing dates. Dr. Spiro did just confirm for me a little bit ago that the same is true for the tests that Ms. Vaughn was looking at. Those are still scheduled for that May and June date. So at this point, as long as the state doesn't change their dates, our calendar will be in alignment and is the best setup in terms of instructional time for students prior to those tests.
And so then I have a couple more questions. What is the status of like the enrollment at Lee Virtual face-to-face? I'm just curious about those numbers, and Home Connect. I know a lot of people at Lee Home Connect was people were really excited about that one. So I was just curious if we have those numbers. And what else? I think I have one more question, I thought. Oh, I know teachers' concerns were over social distancing and portables and stuff like that, because portables are a lot smaller. So I know they're very concerned. I don't know if that's in the toolkit, but because I look forward to reading that over the weekend. So that was another question that I had was, yeah, you answered the one thing. So, oh, and sports. What's the status on the sports? That was the other thing, practicing sports. So those are the I think, and that will be my questions, I think.
Okay. I think I can answer the majority of those questions. First of all, currently we have 27, their selection survey. There's 27,681 of those surveys that have been completed. So we have many more submissions, but they have not been completed. So we are going to do a communications push to remind parents to complete the selection survey. We also have our schools that are reaching out to help our parents and make sure that they're reminded to complete the survey. And we also mailed letters informing families about the selection survey. That went out this week, so we actually took the extra step to mail letters using the post office, so that they should be receiving those in their mailbox. If they haven't already, they should be receiving those this week at the latest. Because of this, we are going to, if this gets approved in terms of an action, we will push back our selection date and give our parents more time to be able to do the selection survey to July 30th. Also, if there's changes as a result of this toolkit, it will be out then, and I think more parents will be able to view that and be able to maybe make that final decision. Families with Focus account, they'll be able to see their choice in Focus, and instructions will be sent out on how to do that. Face-to-face will be the default choice if someone does not make a choice. So overall, in terms of how it's looking, face-to-face has the most votes now at about 43%. Lee Home Connect is 39%. So like Ms. Giovanelli said, it's a pretty popular choice. Lee Virtual School is at 17%. Homeschool is at 1%. So virtual overall is at 57% to the 43% face-to-face. But I do anticipate those numbers probably will change as we move forward and get more information out to our parents. And then we have it broken down by high school, middle, and of course K-8 elementary schools. But overall, even if you look across the different levels, it's still fairly consistent. You just have, I think the middle school's got the lowest face-to-face number with 39%. So those are those numbers. High school athletics, you ask about. So I did have David LaRosa has been looking at our high school athletic season. He's been in touch with the High School Athletic Association, as has Ms. Patrica, who serves on that committee. And he's been, David LaRosa, our Director of Athletics and Activities, has also been working with our athletic directors and also our principals to determine what those dates are going to be. So I met with Mr. LaRosa today, along with Mr. Simmons and Dr. Spiro. And their recommendation, which I support, is that fall sports practice will not begin any sooner than August 24th. High school principals felt it was very important for them to be able to focus as high school principals on the start of practice. So they wanted that 1 week prior to what was being recommended for the start of school, so that they could focus on that. And then on the 31st, they can focus on the start of school. So they didn't want to do them both at the same time and divide their focus. This new date now is 5 weeks later than the original start date of July 27th. And this is for all of the fall sports: football, volleyball, cheerleading, cross-country, swimming, bowling, and golf. Even though football and volleyball are considered more of a higher risk, they felt it would still be important to start them all at the same time. If we do have an opportunity to play games, We will need to determine the extent of that in terms of how much the spectators will be able to participate, how much we're able to open those to the public. That is a concern, and we're still examining options there, including an option to potentially have a paid live streaming of these events. So there might be an opportunity for us to do that, because those gate receipts are very important. This is an opportunity to maybe recoup some of those dollars, because those gate receipts are important for helping us pay for the other athletics that we have throughout the year. We're going to continue with stage 2 of our summer conditioning and workouts until practice begins. So Mr. LaRosa feels that stage 2, we need to continue to stay in stage 2 and not move. We're not ready to move up to stage 3 at this time. So middle school athletics or intramurals are postponed indefinitely. That decision does not have to be made at this time, because those typically don't start till after the school year begins anyway. But hopefully that gives you an update with the high school athletics. Portables was the last thing. I think there'll be some answers for you in the reopening toolkit that will help. It doesn't say, I don't think, specific to portables, but one of the things I am going to be talking about is masks, which I'll get to a little bit later. But I think that's going to also help with some of that. Whenever we cannot have social distancing, we'll be having a mask mandate. And so I think that will help also with some of those concerns about tight spaces and portables.
Yeah, and the class sizes, reduction of that at all and stuff like that. Okay, I figured that will be in the toolkit. So I look forward to reading that. Thank you. Okay, I'm done, Mrs. Fisher, I think.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Giovanelli. So I just wanted to remind us all that we are still in discussion on the approval of the revised 2021 instructional calendar. And I'm hopeful that some of Dr. Atkins' information has been incorporated into this discussion. So at this time, thank you for your patience, Ms. Jordan.
Well, thank you. I really don't have any questions now because everyone has asked the question. So thank you, ladies. And I really appreciate Ms. Vaughn's perspective from a teacher's view. So thank you for that too, Ms. Vaughn. But I do have, I will be supporting this for sure, but I was just kind of concerned when they said that, that we weren't prepared. I think that everybody has worked so hard to be prepared. So that statement kind of like caught me by surprise. So I wanted to put that out there. And then I thought also with the children coming back, I believe that when they do come back, we will be testing. That's a requirement to test these kids to make sure that where they are in that gap, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that's especially with like the ESC kids and, making sure that what they've lost. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. And the only other thing that I would have a question, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the calendar per se, but everybody has mentioned it. The social distancing for the DJJ and the jail, because that's almost an impossibility as well. So that's something that we really need to pay attention for those who do teach there. And I think that's it, because as I said, everyone else has asked the questions and I have their answers. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Mrs. Morgan?
Most of my questions were answered too. Thank you, everyone. I do want to know why we can't proceed on the 24th. And the reason I ask is it hadn't occurred to me until the conversation came up that there is going to be a lot of pivoting that is going to happen at each quarter. And I'm wondering if we are asking too much of staff to do that, and whether we shouldn't be building in some conversion time. And I guess my question is, if I have a question, is what's the difference between the 24th and 31st? Like others, I'm a little concerned we aren't ready for the 10th, but what do we gain by going from the 24th to the 31st?
The conversation that the committee had was around the data, the positivity rate, the information coming out of the Department of Health and the CDC, and thinking that because the requirement is when you're going to open, you have that 5 days of the brick and mortar, that giving those, even just that 5 additional days might give time for the trend of those numbers to go down, and for there to be a little more, sense of that things are going in a downward direction rather than an upward direction. And we did have, again, a lot of conversation around having extra, those professional duty days, which then would give staff time, and just really felt that that time was needed. And I will say to you that from a human resources standpoint, I think that extra time is going to help us to work through all of the, we have 12,000 employees, and we're going to have to, between now and when people report back to work, which is for teachers, tentatively would be the 18th, but then you still have the paraprofessionals and the bus drivers and all of that, and we're going to have to figure that out. And then if we don't have enough staff in a particular area, that 5 days could make all the difference in the world if we need to, hire more teachers or hire more paras because of people that may make, decisions to not return, to work. And so I'm very supportive of that 31st over the 24th. I wanted to support the concern that people have about the data, but then also giving us that time, I think, I'm very concerned about being able to address the needs of all of our employees in an effort to support all of our children. So I think that even that 5 days will be very helpful.
Well, I do understand, but I continue to be concerned about the fact that we're making, what is the expression? Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. That we are so preoccupied with being perfect that we are, in the long term, delaying the opportunity for these kids to be back in school, delaying the opportunities for parents. So, I'm going to support it, but I am, I guess, not convinced by the risk relationship that the decision has been based on, but I accept it. So let me go with that. I do want to comment that I think it's really important to have those days on at the end of the year, as Dr. Atkins said. We've got to have kids in the seat. Those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. So I'm going to piggyback on Ms. Morgan and Dr. Pruitt just for a minute. First of all, this is such a fluid situation. There's a constant change, and there's still so many unanswered questions. I think we're ready as we can be, with the exception of what Dr. Pruitt mentioned, and that is that communication with our staff people, because there are so many and there are so many different needs, whether they be health needs or I've heard from many teachers who have said we want to come back on the 17th or 18th, and we want to have that additional time because many of us are going to be doing things so differently. So they need to be able to plan to adapt to those changes. So I think that's important. And I think the ongoing communication with our workers is critical. And Dr. Pruitt doesn't have that large of a staff in HR. So we appreciate all that work. I appreciate all the questions that were asked by board members because I got my answers through that also. The other thing that I was just going to mention was that with the toolkit and with the superintendent's answers to some of the questions, and I know he has more to talk about regarding masks and that, but I was at a summer feeding site today, midday, where we have a partnership with the city of Cape Coral, and they bring the fun bus. Not only do they bring food and academic information for the kids, but the coach who drives the van actually brings games and guest speakers. So there has been some effort to give kids some fun-based academic and enhancement and enrichment, an opportunity even while they're, at the park to pick up their breakfast and lunch. So I wanted to mention that and thank all of those people from our food service who are working so hard to do that. They're out there in the heat and the humidity every day, and they have developed amazing relationships with the kids. So it's not as though those kids who have been able to access those sites, and some of them are not necessarily schools, but other places where people can access, have really been offered a lot of support from our community members and our staff members. So I wanted to thank you for that. At this time, I see Ms. Vaughn, you have your hand up. Is this part of the discussion on the motion? Yes, okay, Ms. Vaughn.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly touch on a couple points that were made after I spoke. I just want to reiterate in support of the starting on the 31st, the fact that yes, it is a problem that the kids have been out for so long, but I think one of the huge opportunities that we have is that these kids are going to be hooked up, and it's very possible that the second preschool week that we can, and it can even be something we work on right now, that we somehow, for all the kids, whether they're coming back face-to-face or virtual, that we can have some of those practices out there, or, there's all kinds of online practices for all kinds of tests, and just put it out there on the website. And if we can have any, on the public TV and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of opportunities for us in that regard. The second thing that I've heard a lot of people talking about was we've had some emails as a board from teachers that are concerned, let's say, that they're not going to have the time between the quarters. And Ms. Morgan addressed that for the staff about a pivot. This is where the teachers, I think some of the teachers may want to go to their mentors, their unofficial mentors, the seasoned teachers, because, all my years of, well, maybe not in the beginning, but I learned very quickly that if the grading period ends on a particular Friday, let's say, and you let kids turn in work and make up tests till that Friday, that's not a good thing. You just set a date. It ends on Friday, and any work past, let's say, Wednesday goes on the new 9 weeks. And we just have to be very, very strict with our parents as well for the, at the end of the first quarter, if there's some parents that want to go from the Be Home Connect back into the classroom, we need to make a decision point for those people that will give our staff, our district staff, enough time to do that pivot. And really, I don't see it to be a problem if we just set that date and say, you want to come back into the classroom, we must know by, and set it 10 days out or whatever would work. And if you don't, the options are gone for you. You will stay with whatever option you're in now. So I appreciate, and the one other thing, as I mentioned before, I just wanted to reiterate, it was my experience that not just for myself, but for all my teacher friends, we never had enough time for just the old normal beginning of school. Principals always, if school was going to start on a Monday, they always opened the buildings on Saturday, maybe even Sunday, for teachers to come in, because teachers are extremely conscientious with all of those things. So yeah, I stick with even though there's some problems with kids being out, there are some opportunities for us to put some end of the summer things to get kids back in the groove. So those are my other comments. Thank you so much for letting me speak a second time.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Gittens, I see your hand is up. Is this part of the discussion on the motion?
Yes, ma'am, it is. I wanted to just adding to what Ms. Vaughn said. I do understand that getting your grades in and all. I think this is a new and different situation that will be new for even seasoned teachers to suddenly have twice as number of kids in the second quarter of the second semester. Excuse me, and teachers have mentioned that. I do want to say to the superintendent, thank you to you and staff for listening and sending out the mailing and following up and with this survey. And also, I've heard that the individual schools will be following up as well, and that is a definite plus as to making sure that pockets of their parents are all covered. And I have one last question, which is, you mentioned the responses in general. Do we have responses somewhat for zones to know how we're doing with that?
I don't have that data in front of me, but I'll see if we can get that data and provide it.
Ms. Gittens, is that it? Thank you very much, Mrs. Gittens. Now, Ms. Jordan.
I was just going to ask if we could call for the vote.
Yes, I'm ready to do that. Yes, I just wanted to make sure that we had all necessary discussion included. Thank you. Okay, at this time we will call for the vote. So all those in favor, please record your vote, which has been sitting on our screens patiently for a while. And do we need a voice vote from Ms. Patrica? And no? Okay. All right. Record your vote, and Ms. Schaefer will let us know the outcome.
Ms. Gittens, do you need me to vote for you?
Mrs. Gittens?
No, I voted, and I just wanted to say for the record as well that I'm voting for it, with the caveat that we at least look at something to do between now and the end of August to help the students with resources and the families.
Dr. Spiro wanted me to add that, just a reminder that iReady is still open and available to elementary and middle school families. Just that when he heard the discussion earlier about the achievement gap, he just wanted to that resource is still available and out there for families.
And can we make sure that families are aware of that and that they can use it as well? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we will re-communicate and send that out as a reminder, Ms. Gittens, so that families know that that's still available.
Okay, thank you. Now, now on the agenda, we're on to other business, and in order to, for all of us to hear all of Dr. Atkins'
Madam Chair,
yes.
could you please state the result of the vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Schaefer, do you have the result of the vote?
Yes, ma'am. It was unanimous.
It's
for yay.
Motion passes 7-1. We open on the 31st and we approve the new calendar. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask for Dr. Atkins to move up into first place under other business so that he can add his comments and reports and we can hear all of the information he needs to share with us today before we make our comments. Dr. Atkins.
I appreciate that, board members and Madam Chair. I do have some information I do want to cover with you, but I also appreciate the questions because that allowed me to cover quite a bit of the ground that I wanted to cover prior to this part of the meeting. So thank you for that. You know, one of the things that you see from the American Pediatrics Association or the American Association of Pediatrics is the call for schools to be flexible. And we certainly need to be agile as we look at the numbers and react to new information, because I think that's something that we've learned as a result of this pandemic. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and as those questions become answered, then we have to be prepared to move as a result and make some changes and adapt. One of the places has to do with the subject of masks. As we've looked at the emerging research that has come out related to masks and the ability of masks to be able to stop the spread of the virus that results in COVID-19, I think it's time for us to revisit that recommendation, because a lot has happened since the Pandemic Task Force had made its initial recommendation in terms of the positivity rates here in Lee County, but also as it relates to some of the studies that came out relevant to masks. If you look, so what I am recommending at this time is that the school district of Lee County adopt a mask mandate for schools. And what I mean by that is the current recommendation from the task force was that we would require masks in the hallways, that we would require masks on our buses, but we would expect masks in the classrooms, particularly where social distancing wasn't able to occur, and then also in those large areas. I think at this point, I believe it's in our best interest and our students' best interest and staff's best interest to move that to required, so that we would require masks in the classroom, we would require masks in those large spaces like cafeterias and so forth. In other words, we're mandating or requiring masks in schools. I think this is important. I think that this is a recommendation that we see broad-based support. If you look at the American Association of Pediatrics, CDC, we've consulted our local health experts here, the Department of Health, our experts at Lee Health. And then on Tuesday, we had a meeting with our local physicians, primary care, a group of pediatric doctors. And they really, I think, helped us work through the science of this and really feel that this is in our best interest. So that all these groups are very supportive of us moving toward this mask mandate. So that is something that I'm recommending that we do at this time. In addition, if we're looking at places like this building, I think that we also need to look at requiring masks whenever we have public spaces or in work areas where we are not able to do social distancing. So I'm going to be doing that as well. I think that our teachers, as we think about the transmissions, particularly of the virus as it relates to some of our older students, and those students that are 10 years old and above, there was a recent study that came out just this week related to that, and some of our folks that may be medically fragile. I think that as adults, I think that there is a concern about the transmission of the virus between these two, and that a mask can certainly help reduce that transmission. So it's our duty, I think, to protect the interests of our employees and our students, and therefore I'm making this recommendation. I think this also supports some of the other things that have been said that we all have as a part of our reopening plan and a part of our toolkit, and that's the 3 W's, which are washing hands, wearing a mask, and then washing your space, so that social distancing. And I think if we really, really educate our community and our public about these things, I think we'll be much better off. So back to the mask, I have asked our staff counsel, Christine Schroed, to look at masks across the state of Florida. We do have a number of our districts that are also requiring masks or mandating masks, so we're in line with a lot of particularly our comparable districts that we're used to looking at. And I will be asking her to put together a resolution. I've talked to Ms. Bruno about a resolution for the board But in the meantime, I wanted you to be aware that this is going to be my directive or my recommendation. I don't believe this requires necessarily a board vote, but I certainly, would hope for a show of support. But I wanted to make you aware of that publicly and make our public aware that we're moving in that direction. So there's that piece of information. I don't know if we need to stop and have discussion on that before I move on.
Board members, any questions or comments on that information? Okay. Ms. Gittens.
I just want to say, I think it's, I would support that idea. We also need to help to educate our parents, though, because that's knowledge of students being able to and wanting to wear masks is going to start at home before the students come to school.
Thank you for that. And we do also recognize there are situations like children 2 and below, certain children that may have reasons why they cannot wear a mask. We are totally understanding of that, so we will be working with our parents where we have students that have those exceptions. But otherwise, for the general population, that is what the requirement is going to be, as it is for our school staffs and district staff as well down here in the district office. One of the other things that came out of our discussion with our physicians is, I want you to know, we have, in my opinion, we've always had a great working relationship with Lee Health and our other healthcare providers in the area. And again, they're stepping up the plate and I think helping us with really some of our metrics around not only just reopening, but also around when this mask mandate and other mandates can be relaxed. So we're going to be working with them and looking at additional things to consider, such as the community spread of this disease, the trajectory of the number of new cases, the trajectory of the positivity rate that we see, and then also looking at the capacity of our local healthcare providers to be able to provide care to our citizens in Lee County. So if you're looking at the percentage of occupancy for just the beds, which we've seen this week at 99 and 100% at Lee Health. We're also looking at ICU capacity and then their staffing capacity as well as the testing and the 14-day rate. So all of these things, and they're going to be working with us to develop a matrix that will help us make some of these important decisions, because at some point we do have that full distance learning model, and if we feel as a community that we're not able to reopen on August 31st because of the numbers, then I think we will be able to make a decision based on some good hard data. But also, if we are able to open, and people are going to start asking, well, when can we start bringing people back into football stadiums, or when can we start to loosen some of the requirements as it relates to masks? We'll have, again, good hard metrics to be able to evaluate our decisions against that is going to be developed with us, with the collaboration of our local health professionals. So I sincerely appreciate their efforts there and wanted you to be aware that is a committee that Beth Whip and Lauren Stillwell are heading up, and so I'm appreciative of that. There's some questions that have been raised by board members, and I think a lot of them have been answered today, but there is one about return to work criteria that we were looking at Department of Health, and that is they are, in terms of how many times do you get a test to be able to come back to work, and the Department of Health is, and I'll just read what they have to say here. A test-based strategy is no longer recommended because the majority of cases, the results exclude, it would result in excluding from work cases who continue to shed detectable SARS COVID RNA but are no longer infectious. So for that reason, they're really looking at more of a symptoms-based model. And so you'll see that in our decision-making tree that we don't have the requirement for the negative testing. But I'll send this out to board members so that you're aware of that. And I believe at this point, a couple other things. I just pardon me here. I know that staff heard questions and comments and has sent me a couple things that we want to make sure. Ms. Gittens, in response to your request for data being broken down by zone, we are able to do that because we have it broken down by school, obviously, so we have school numbers, so we can break that out into zones. We would ask for a little time to do that for two reasons. One, just the time it takes, but the second reason is we want to see if we can have an impact of the letter campaign, so the actual paper letters being sent on the results, because I think that will increase the number. And then the second, and just the second, I think that just the time it takes to compile that information. I asked Dr. Desimores to give me an update regarding PPE, because obviously if we're going to, require masks, we've got, this kind of mask, and of course this kind of mask that will be provided for staff and also students. But this is going to be at a cost. So they've expended somewhere in the neighborhood of about $800,000 to this point, but it looks as if the dollar amount overall for that could go in excess of 10 million. Now that's all PPE. That's not just masks, but you're talking about things such as the gloves, the sanitizer, the shields that we have, the face shields that go over the face, and these things are being provided to our staff upon their request. And I believe, let's see, we mentioned the iReady. I think that's all of my comments. I appreciate you putting me up front there, but I just had a lot to cover. So thank you so much. And again, I do appreciate the vote. I think this is really going to be a good thing for our students. It's going to be a good thing for our employees because it's going to give us a safer reopening. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atkins. Okay, Ms. Giovanelli, do you have a specific question, or can this be in your board member comments and you can be first? Please unmute.
It can be both. It can be both, actually. So thank you. I just had one question. Actually, this is for Dr. Atkins too, regarding scrubs. It was mentioned to me that scrubs wasn't a bad idea for teachers, but I was told that usually is a school, the administrator's decision at each school. But scrubs would be something that's pretty affordable, and they wouldn't have to wear, certain dress-up clothes and that kind of thing. And they would also, if you're wearing masks, they would be that would kind of single them out who's a teacher on the face-to-face thing. So I don't know if that's something that it's a bargaining issue as well. I don't know, but or something that HR would want to talk about. But I thought it was actually a really great idea because they could wash one and have the next one ready for the next day, because they say that you should just drop them at the washer and wash them immediately and not bring them inside. So, so that was one thing I thought I'd just throw that out there. The other thing is, School Board Attorney Bruno, did you have that calendar or the waiver thing that they were telling me? Do you have that order?
I do. On July 6, 2020, Commissioner Cochran issued the emergency order, and in paragraph Roman numeral 1A, it does refer to the waiver that you were talking about, Ms. Giovanelli. It basically states that the Florida statutes requiring school districts to operate public schools for a minimum of 180 days or an hourly equivalent is waived to the extent necessary to give effect to this order. And I do believe that Dr. Atkins was saying that there was something else that came out from the chancellor with regards to the seats. And I'll defer to him on that part because that part I do not have.
Well, if you heard what Mr. Bruno said, one of the things that's important there is you're talking about the minutes. So the days while they're waiving the 180 days, the direction from the chancellor is that the course requirements and the seat time requirements are not a part of the waiver as we understand it. And so if you're a school district like Collier County, for example, you don't have to do 180 days to actually get the minutes in to get credit for that algebra class. But if you're in the school district of Lee County, because we are only going to school 6.5 hours as opposed to 7 hours, then our schedule doesn't have that flexibility in it that you would see in Collier and some of the other school districts. So that's why we had to build the additional days into our calendar.
Okay, great, thank you. So I will just end with that. It's really important that everyone feels comfortable in going back to school, and I would love the opportunity to be able to see and make sure that, and just get to be able to go to some of the campuses and see the necessary changes that are, for everything to be ready. And so I can feel comfortable in putting students back at school, and parents I can personally assure them that we've taken every measure that we possibly can for the safety of our teachers and our students. So that's what I would ask. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mrs. Giovanelli, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, Mr. Baker?
Sure, thank you. So I support the move that the board made tonight. Thank you, Dr. Atkins, for bringing the recommendation, and thank you to the committee for their work. Ms. Gittens, I also really appreciated you sending the board an email suggesting that we send any calendar committee questions that we had directly to the superintendent so as to not avoid sunshine, but it reminded me, and it jogged my memory, and it provided me with that opportunity. Not that I did it, I didn't have any specific questions for them, but I really appreciated that reminder. To me, this move is really about preparation. And it's funny because Ms. Morgan mentioned perfection, and I don't think perfection is an option here. I don't think we're seeking perfection. I think Dr. Atkins has been very clear that we are going to run into problems, and I think he's trying to prepare the community as well as he possibly can for those problems. But I do think it's about adequate and appropriate preparation. Making sure that our teachers are properly trained. This is a brand new teaching model that we're rolling out. Teachers have never had to do this before. We need to give them time to figure it out. We need to prepare our families. And one of the things that I learned listening to the Golisano Lee Foundation thing yesterday is, we have to be putting masks on our children now. So last night at dinner, I told my 4 kids, beginning middle of August, you guys have to wear a mask every time you're in front of an electronic device, which I hate to say is a little bit too frequently these days, but they didn't really understand why until I told them, listen, when you walk in, day one, you have to be prepared. You can't be touching your mask and playing with it and taking it off and putting it back on. You have to be acclimated. And so I'm hopeful and confident that we're going to be rolling out preparations like that for our families so that they can send their children to school equally prepared. I do have a couple questions for you, Dr. Atkins. Will we be accelerating the distribution of Chromebooks so that students who turned their Chromebooks in, like I have 2 rising 9th graders. So as 8th graders, they turned their Chromebooks in. But if I want them to access the iReady and the other programs that Dr. Spiro mentioned earlier, is there a way that they can access those devices sooner rather than later?
I believe the answer to that question is yes. I'll defer to see if I'm not sure if Mr. Davis is here today. Maybe Dr. Spiro could respond for us.
That's fine. If you can update me in a board update, that would be fine.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that, Ms. Gittens was talking about, learning gaps and achievement gaps. And if students don't have devices, then those programs don't do them any good. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that. Where do we stand? And you don't have to answer this question right now either, but one of the most frequent questions I get from families is, if I go back to face-to-face and my child has to quarantine, not my child's classroom, but my child has to quarantine, can my child receive live instruction from home, or are they stuck just with Google Classroom? Have we seen any movement on that as being an opportunity for our face-to-face kids and families?
Again, I'll defer to Dr. Spiro on that one there. Here he is.
Good afternoon, everybody. As of right now, we have it laid out in the toolkit that is, if a student is home with an illness for a short period of time, they will do their work through Google Classroom. However, we have the option in there that if a teacher chooses to do the Google Meets in that classroom where it normally would not have been set up, then that teacher has that freedom to do it. Right now, we're not trying to add, we're trying to be very cognizant of how much we're putting on to our teachers as well. So remember, we talked about building master schedules to try to have pure classes for Lee Home Connect, so we can minimize the number of teachers that have to balance between Lee Home Connect students and face-to-face. So for short-term illness, right now it is still a Google Classroom. I also wanted to go back to what you talked about for Chromebooks. Schools will be communicating with their families for our rising 6th graders, our rising 9th graders, our kindergartners, for students new to Lee County. They will be communicating with them on how and when to pick up Chromebooks and hotspots as well. So that information will be forthcoming from schools as they communicate their back-to-school pieces with their families.
Okay, so what you just said, Dr. Spiro, makes me want to change my choice for my family, because I don't want my kids in face-to-face instruction if they're only going to have Google Classroom for 2 weeks while they're home quarantined. I'm not asking for teachers to manage a classroom environment and a Lee Home Connect environment. I'm asking for teachers to manage a classroom environment and simply have a live stream going home to those kids who have to be quarantined. Is that an unreasonable request?
I understand what you're asking, and right now that is where we are. We are right now Google Classroom or the Google Meets if the teacher has that.
Okay.
That's still a piece where we're working with the union on as well, remember. So we're really trying to be very thoughtful of how much we're putting on our teachers, Ms. Patrica, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay, thank you. Couple more things. Dr. Atkins or Attorney Dupree Bruno, will we be passing a policy to give Dr. Atkins the authority to close a classroom, a school, or the district should it become necessary without having to call a special meeting?
So we discussed this, and I have to tell you that in my review of the current board policy, I believe that Dr. Atkins already has that ability in emergency power. Let me just pull up the policy for you.
So he would just have to declare an emergency and act under that policy, right? As he did previously and as he did during Irma. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So okay. Board Policy 1.18 is very clear that he has the ability to close schools in any case of any emergency. The only thing is, obviously, he has to notify the board as soon as he possibly can to let you guys know what is happening. But in my review of the policy, I believe that he can act for the general health and safety of the children, their welfare, as well as close schools as necessary. So
okay, good, thank you. And what about a technology policy and or a change to the student code of conduct to accommodate behavior expected on Lee Home Connect? Are we talking about that? Is that going to be necessary?
That one I'm going to defer to Dr. Atkins.
Yes, I think when it comes to Lee Home Connect or Lee Schools Connect, and also as it relates to just the mask etiquette, these are things that may necessitate some change in our code of conduct.
Okay,
so
good.
Those have been discussed.
And with the pushback to August 31st, we have plenty of time to get that done.
Yes.
All right, good. And the last comments I'll make are surrounding FHSAA and return to sport. I am a little concerned, Dr. Atkins, with the August 24th start date, because that does not follow the FHSAA Sports Medicine Advisory Committee's guidance, which we will be discussing at an FHSAA board meeting tonight. So this also ties a little bit into what Ms. Vaughn was saying about positivity rates. There's like a triple secret part of the Florida Department of Health website where you can actually see the positivity rates by county. And I say it's triple secret. It's not really secret. It's just really hard to find. I will try to send an email to the board showing them exactly where they can find it. But the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee has said that, has recommended for football and volleyball that we do not start until 2 or 3 weeks after we open brick and mortar buildings. And at that point, we assess whether it's safe in the county to open. In addition, at that time, 2 to 3 weeks after we open, we should be looking at the 28-day rolling positivity rate to determine whether it's under 5%. If it's not under 5%, it is not safe to return to football and volleyball. The other sports could start on Monday and it would be fine, but football and volleyball are considered unsafe. They're considered high-risk contact sports. So going back to football and volleyball on the 24th violates or doesn't follow those guidelines, which makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. We will be talking tonight about hopefully adopting that as an FHSA guideline that districts are expected to follow. In addition to that, I will be raising the discussion about moving football and volleyball entirely out of the fall and into either the winter or the spring. Because if you look at positivity rates across the state, there is one county below 5%. One county has could start playing football on Monday. The rest of them, the numbers are, the majority of them are above 10%. So as you look at delaying and delaying and delaying and delaying sports, the reality of cancellation ultimately becomes where you're headed. But if you move those sports back into the school year, there's hope and opportunity for kids to be able to play and actually get on those fields and courts. So that's sort of my update to the board as to where we're going with the FHSAA, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Please, Dr. Atkins.
Yeah, I think that the guidance from the Florida High School Athletic Association is absolutely critical, and because at the current time, districts are really left to figure it out on their own, and so what we have been doing is working with, as I said, athletic directors. We really, I think as a group, we support the SMAC report overall. But what you're finding is that our neighboring districts and districts around the state are kind of left to their own devices to try to figure it out. And so we're trying to align there as well as align with our current start of school and our current schedule. Now, schedule that we currently have, we're definitely know we're going to end up canceling games. And Mr. LaRosa is recommending really just minimizing the number of games right now. But if we do get some guidance from the Florida High School Athletic Association, I think that would help districts across the entire state.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Ms. Fisher, I forgot to say one thing. So Ms. Vaughn, I'm going to show you this website. I'm going to email you the website and try to help, send you screenshots so that you can navigate through the website to see where this county information is. On 6/28, Lee County had a 6-week rolling positivity rate of 21.43%. On 7/5, it was 15.29%. And on 7/12, it was 12.27%. So we are definitely headed in the right direction in terms of positivity rates here in Lee County. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Ms. Jordan?
Thank you. Okay, my comments. The only comments that I have is that I did receive the letter. The letter did come to the House regarding all the choices for the kids. So it was very clear and precise. So that was really nice to have that. And then also the iReady. My grandkids have had the opportunity because they've kept their computers and they were in the summer program. They volunteered to do that for the summer. So they had the opportunity to do the iReady, which was really good for them as well. I did pay attention to and had the opportunity to watch the Galisano live yesterday, and which I thought was excellent. And thank you, Ms. Gittens, because I know I seen that she had sent that out. And a lot of the questions that were coming before them were dealing with schools. So I thought that was really a lot of good information to receive. And then I'm also, I've been trying to reach out to the community to different members of the community to see how we could possibly get that reach further for those kids that we may not be able to reach, or the parents who have not turned in their paperwork yet. So I'm definitely working on that within my district right now, so I could to get those numbers in. So I think once we get the numbers from the different schools, that would be a great help for all of us, because then we could actually help even more. And I did notice too that we did have cases, because I have that up too for Lee County. We had 100. It was 270 day before yesterday and 370 yesterday. So the cases did go up 100. And I guess it really depends on which site you're looking at as well. But I just want to thank everybody. I think that, today we came with a great plan. We're moving forward, can't go backwards. So we're going to try to do the best that we can do to provide the safest environment that we possibly can for our students and our staff. And just, for everybody to understand, we do get a lot of emails and we do care. And that's my comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jordan. Okay, then next on my list is Mrs. Gittens.
Okay, I was dawdling over here. I didn't know I was next. Thank you. Okay, a couple of things. Dr. Atkins, we talked about the resources, and first of all, thank you, Ms. Patrica, for bringing up the Chromebook situation. From parents of fifth graders going into sixth and eighth going into ninth, that they had to, just this week, were notified that they had to bring the Chromebooks back. So their question was, they took those and turned them in, will they receive them from the incoming school that they're going to? And how long will that be? I really appreciate the fact of saying that we do have iReady and all of that still up. And I would ask if Dr. Spiro or whomever from Academic Services might be able to give us some, some resource like URLs or something that we can share when parents ask them to say, well, here's something that you might be able to go to. And let's see, if Dr. Spiro is still around, I don't know if we asked him this question, but there was a little bit of confusion as to the separation of the teachers that are going to be doing Lee Home Connect and the classroom teachers that will be doing face-to-face. And I thought that I heard him say that they would be separate because they didn't want to put all of that pressure on a classroom teacher that has a classroom full of students to also do the Lee Home Connect. And I thought I heard in another meeting that someone thought that that was different. Can you please just clarify that?
Sure. Right. And so what I've said all along, and every time I've spoken about this publicly, as assistant principals are building their master schedules, they're going to try very hard to have all Lee Home Connect students assigned to a teacher. So they have peer classes of these are our Lee Home Connect students as much as possible. But as I've said too, there may be times where a teacher is going to have a blend. For example, in high school, you may have a teacher, I'll use an example, who might teach psychology, and there might only be one section of psychology. And so they may have to have a blended model where some are face-to-face and some are Lee Home Connect. But we're trying to minimize that as much as possible because we're trying to ease that burden on our teachers. And so our assistant principals for curriculum are currently building those master schedules as the survey results are coming in, and they're able to see which students are going to be in the building and which ones are going to be Lee Home Connect. Hope that helps, Ms. Gittens.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that.
Thanks, Dr. Spiro.
And thank you. Yes. Okay, I have two more quick things. Well, one more, on the Google Classroom and Google Meets, and I'm sorry, this is Dr. Spiro again. No, let me disregard that. Okay, the next thing is I had brought up at our last meeting about the Eastleigh Education Cooperative, and I wanted to at least bring that back up again. We have been meeting, and Jack can chime in. I'm sorry?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to know, let Ms. Gittens know that that is on an agenda, that it is part of an agenda item. I can't remember which workshop it is, but I do know that the Eastleigh is something that is going to be discussed, and that it has been placed, I think, on the next workshop's agenda item. I just want to make sure that you knew that, but you can go ahead.
Well, that's okay, then I'll bring it up then. We have been meeting, and it's been very successful. We've talked about the digital divide, HR issues that are germane to our district, such as attracting and keeping the best teachers and administrators. We had a discussion with Kathy Eba about planning construction. Our next meeting is going to be with Dr. Spiro to talk about academics. And it's a very vital and worthwhile group that is meeting. And so I'll leave that until the next time. My final thing, I think that's it, is the graduations. I want to publicly say to the graduates that did go to the schools to pick up their diplomas and to take pictures and all of that. I had intended on trying to get to as many as possible. I was only able to get to Riverdale and South because we had a family thing with my husband. But anyway, so I did Riverdale's, I think it was Monday, and it was very organized, and the students came through and they were able to pick up their diploma and then pick up their yearbook. And I understand the next day they were coming back to take pictures with the administrators. And yesterday I went by South with the Wolf Pack. And I tell you, they did it up righteously. They had a red carpet and all of that. And I have to mention the one student, and I don't remember his name, but he had a serious car accident near the end of school, and he was in the hospital in a coma for several weeks. And to see him get out of the car and walk up down the red carpet to pick up his diploma was just really heartfelt, and everybody was cheering him on. A lot of the students came, and it was just an opportunity for closure for them. And I just say to them, this is just one chapter in your life, and I hope and pray for you that the next ones will be happier and more fun-filled, and you will get some of the things that you wanted to do. As leaders, go forth and make us proud. And thank you. That's all my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Vaughn.
Thanks. I wanted to add my thanks to our local health professionals for being such a support to the school district with their science, and I emphasize and underline the word, with their science data. Really, really appreciate that. And I can't help myself but say something, well, let me just say, express my disappointment that we have not had the same kind of support from many of our local government entities. I'm hoping that there will be a movement now to more of our government entities, such as County Commission, City of Fort Myers, City of Cape Coral, to support wearing masks. I know I've heard from a couple of the elected officials, oh, we can't do it because we can't enforce it and it's illegal and it's not our role. And I'm sorry, I don't accept that. Even if it's not your role, there are always things that our local government can do to underscore instead of try to hide data. And I'm going to be happy to see what Ms. Patrica sends me. I've been tracking this. The New York Times has something that they update daily, and what I'm looking at there are the number of cases, the number of deaths, and it's by each state. And then for every state, you can go down to the county level and see a lot of data. So again, thank you, health professionals, for stepping up and helping us out with this. And government people, it's not too late. I did listen to Governor DeSantis' press conference. I lose track of days. I think it was yesterday, in which he did not address masks. He specifically, he said, he's not going to have a mandate. He said, well, he's leaving it up to the people of Florida, and we always know what to do. I don't see evidence of that. Sorry, I don't. With the data, I don't see that. And he made a comment about, there was only one comment about our teachers, and it was something to the effect that if the teachers had a fragility in terms of age or underlying conditions, that something like they'd figure it out as to what their option was going to be. And I'm sorry, figuring it out. I'm very sorry also that we've had to scramble to get the information that we need from local and state Department of Health. To me, that's just unacceptable as also as an elected official, that we don't help our schools in a better way. Because for all of you out there who have complained and we need to start up now and what's wrong with us and we just need to go back. If we had been, as a state, if we had been a little more cognizant of the value of the science and the social distancing and all that goes with it, we might not be quite in this situation right now. That said, we have lots of great partners that are helping us out. And speaking of that, a little pitch to all of those service organizations out there throughout our county. Do you want to have a fundraiser? Do you want to do something else to support? I know we've always had, and it's still important to have the school supplies and the backpacks and all of that. But what about a little the permanent face mask fundraisers? It's really expensive to do like a school logo and I'm not sure what Miss Patrica, do you have the Patriots on your, no. I can't see what's on your mask, but I know.
Not yet, Miss Vaughn. I haven't ordered my Patriots one yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, and Tom Brady's name won't be on it. But anyway, but anyway, I mean, those are always really expensive to do. But face masks come in a lot of different colors. So a lot of different bright colors. If we get reds and blues and oranges and greens and all of that, some in the adult size and some in the child size, maybe we can do that. Or maybe there are organizations that want to do fundraisers on these. And, if a mask, if they're logo masks that cost, let's say $5 or whatever, and sell them for $6 or $7 to make some money. But that's a suggestion to all of our wonderful organizations that always support us with fundraisers and donations and contributions to do that. And I totally agree with the comment from Ms. Gittens, Ms. Patrica about let's get those Chromebooks back out and let's publicize all the various, not just the iReady, but there's so many things online as well. I know students that are going to be taking AP, for example. The College Board has a lot of stuff. So we just need to put out all of those sites, and I'm going to suggest that my grandson, who's going into 8th grade, start working on some of these things. He'll be thrilled. But anyway, those are my comments, and I wish everybody to stay safe and wear your mask and wash your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Mrs. Morgan.
Let's see. I guess I'll start with the community. I am really grateful to the health community for coming together and providing support for Dr. Atkins, because frankly, what is very concerning to me and been very disappointing about this whole experience is that the community, typically communities in crisis situations, that's something that brings them together. We have science, and the science tells us what we need to do as a community. And individually, we can make choices to do what's right for everybody in the community. Because that hasn't happened, the school district has been put in two very difficult positions. One is that they've had to make choices for children and for employees as a result of community actions. And those have been very difficult things to do. The other thing is that we have, as a community, not apart from the school district, given any thought to these children who have been, a significant number of them, who have been, I won't say abandoned because that's too dramatic, but since March, they've not been in school. Families have had to work. In many cases, we've got families in crisis, and it's all about what are the schools going to do? What are the schools going to do? And I guess I would have to say that at the end of this, I hope there's a silver lining. And I hope the silver lining is that people recognize that we are not providing the social services we need to provide. We don't have the foundation in place on a regular basis. And the lack of resources has been dramatized by this crisis. So that's my comment about the community. I appreciate the people who are stepping in and saying, we'll help you and support you in this decision-making process. But this is my plea that every individual out there do what they can to contribute to this effort to get kids back in school and to get people back in the workforce. I also want to thank, oh, is he talking to me? You see Dr. Atkins? Okay.
I just wanted to say one thing about the community, that your comments just reminded me of something I feel I need to tell you. I did have a conversation with Roger Desjardins yesterday, and and really what the conversation was, we were just getting into the mask and jurisdictional issues and all that, and our attorneys, assure us that we are a separate municipality, and that we have the ability to make our own requirements there. So, but what was offered, they have CARES dollars, and through those CARES dollars, they have been stockpiling PPE and other things such as the sanitizer and so forth. So I do want to make you aware that there was an offer on the part of the county manager that if the school district requires that type of materials that they're stockpiling, that he wanted to make me aware that it is available to us, and we just need to make a request of that. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that.
And that's another positive. Thank you very much. I also want to thank staff. I tell people in the community since March, whatever it was, 15th, the Ides of March, whatever, people have been working tirelessly 24/7 in the school district. First to come up with a turn on a dime with the fourth quarter plan, and teachers scrambled and families scrambled, and it was not perfect, but an awful lot of good things were in place that teachers could fall back on, that staff could fall back on. And so kudos to staff. And then school ended, and now we have, to face the opening of school. And I know from the questions I get, from what the questions I hear you all raise, that this is extraordinarily complicated. And I know there will be glitches, and there will be criticism for those glitches, but I am deeply grateful for the extraordinary amount of time and effort put in by staff on this. That being said, I did make a little comment, I'm going to say maybe our last meeting or maybe 2 meetings ago, because we're in a situation where district staff are making decisions about classrooms and schools, first in the 4th quarter with the virtual learning, and now going forward. And many of the people who are in the process of making the decisions are not in the schools and not actually living with some of the decisions that have been made. I really do feel it's important, one, that an effort be made to debrief teachers about 4th quarter, a real, some sort of analysis that elicits what worked and what didn't work, because district staff knows what worked in terms of numbers, but I'm not sure the teachers have had an opportunity to provide their expertise in response to this. And I think that needs to happen. And I think going forward in this first month, as we work on this new plan, that district employees, directors and above, people who are making decisions and making recommendations about how we move forward, that they should be in the classroom. So much is changing, and I'm afraid that between what's happening on the ground and the people who are making recommendations, there's a possibility they could diverge because they're not having the same experiences. And I think that that's the risk that we run going forward if we don't reestablish those connections to the ground. So those are my comments. Really, I'm enormously grateful to staff, and I'm enormously grateful to the medical community for stepping up and providing support to the superintendent and to his staff. So I think we do have a good plan. I know there will be people who will be disappointed, but I'm not. I think we're ready to move forward, and I'm looking forward to the next step. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. So thank you for that comment. I do think it's critical, as I said before, for ongoing communication with our teachers and other in the trenches staff, because they are the ones who are continuing to ask the questions and feel like they're not quite in the loop yet. So I think that's one more step for us to take as we offer the options, the choices, and the support, which is going to protect the health and safety of our students and staff. Along the lines of community, I attended a behavioral health task force with Healthy Lee earlier today. And so they have I think they're calling it a movement or an initiative. And they're right now calling it Call for Action, but that name could change. They have created a resiliency toolkit, and they are offering that to people in the community. And they are looking to see if they can partner with us and maybe use some of our food distribution sites as an opportunity to get some of that information out. And then there are also some online opportunities for support, for free family support and group work. And I'll send that out in an email to the superintendent and all of you regarding that. So I wanted to thank Dr. Paul Simeone and that whole team for offering to work with us. The Behavioral Health Task Force is creating this Call for Action initiative because they're anticipating that our kids who have not been in the safety of their schools since March have been oftentimes not abandoned, like you said before, but they have not had the attention and the support and the nurturing that they needed. We know that our abuse cases are up over 50% in most of the municipalities. And there was an article in the news press yesterday about the increase in sexual abuse of children most recently over the last few months. And I'm really concerned about that, which is why I continue to stay involved with the Healthy Lead movement. So I hope that we can work with them and they can work with us. And we do have a representative from our Student Services Department on that task force, and I have an appointment to talk with her later on to get some more information. The other thing I wanted to mention was, I have a question. Are we going to have shields, face shields, available, not for staff, but perhaps for students who can't wear the masks and can't afford to get the shields? And I don't know if maybe we could get involved in grant writing, or if there is some money, and Dr. Desimore probably could answer that better. But I hope that that might be an option in some cases, which are critical. And do you want to answer that now, Dr. Atkins, or you want to just wait till later? That's fine.
Yeah, I will. I know we're definitely offering the face shields for staff, and I will check on the students for you and get back with you.
Okay, thank you. And then before Attorney Bruno, when we talked about the state of emergency, so when the governor has extended the state of emergency for 60 more days, which takes us somewhere into September, does that constitute an emergency, which gives the superintendent the availability or the opportunity to be able to close schools and that?
He will have the power under that state of emergency as well. But
okay.
I think under 1.18, he continues to have powers to be able to close schools and make decisions based on the health and welfare and safety of the students. So I think he'll be fine with 1.18 as well, our board policy.
Thank you, excellent. And then I'm going to back up Dr. Atkins to the face shields again and just make mention, and I have not heard this, of our clinic staff. Our clinic assistants, I know our nurses are not in the schools daily, but our clinic assistants are. So I'm hoping that perhaps some of the shields that are available in the front offices could also be available in the clinic, considering what might, occur there, and that our clinic assistants will also be protected. I have one other question for the board. We are scheduled for August the 5th to do our final master board training. So I would just like thumbs up if you plan on participating and attending, and a thumbs down if you're not.
Thumbs up for me, Madam Chair. This is Chris.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I see three thumbs down. I think that I'm sorry about that, because I feel like if people want to be on the school board and they want to be a part of the team, that they would participate with every opportunity to build that team better. And under the circumstances when we have 3 people who will not attend, perhaps we should not even do that last training, because of the fact we can't get the master board as a board unless we have full participation. So I'll leave that with you now and then follow up with an email. And I will pray that you will all stay well and your families will be well, and that we will keep Mary in our prayers. According to her husband this afternoon, there is no change in her condition, sadly. Okay, so now, before I move on to Attorney Bruno, I do see 2 hands up, Ms. Gittens and Mrs. Giovanelli. Ms. Gittens?
Okay, just very quickly, 30 seconds. One, thank you, Ms. Morgan, for mentioning about listening to those on the ground. That was very important. The student that I forgot the name of itself was Mateo Herrera, and I wanted to publicly say congratulations to him. He went through a lot to get where he could graduate. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I have parents and community members that want to help the schools to, either get ready or what do they need to do. Some mentioned about reading or mentoring. And now that we have this time and the resources, how can we get some of the community members that are willing and eager to help in some way? Everyone realizes the potential of this achievement gap, and they want to do something to help lessen it. And even if it's like reading online with a student or whatever, there's a group that are willing to do that. And I'm sure if we put it out there, there's others that would as well. And especially in some of the situations where the parents either aren't able to do it or don't have the time or they're working or whatever, it speaks to that forgotten child that we were referring to earlier. So if Dr. Atkins or Dr. Spiro or someone can get to us some information about if that's a possibility, if they need to do it through their school, or how they can volunteer to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Giovanelli.
Yes, I would like to make a comment back on the Master Board training. Dr. Atkins has not attended any of those meetings, and I think it requires the superintendent to attend it. But I mean, I think we're asking to do this now in the middle of this pandemic, and him putting back schools, getting schools back open and reopening of schools is very important. I think that doing that and spending that additional money, because I asked Susan about that, and it's like $5,000, and I think that right now reopening schools is where our priority should be. And I don't even think asking Dr. Atkins to attend a meeting like that at this point in time is really not important at this point. So that's my comment.
Yes, thank you for sharing your opinion. That's why I suggested potentially canceling it. I mean, if we don't have full participation and, we are not the governance team we could be, and these are the reasons why. So I respect everyone's opinion. And Ms. Vaughn.
I just want to say, Chair, that I'm really disappointed that you had people put thumbs up, thumbs down. I can tell you that yesterday I sent a long email to Ms. Bruno on the very topic. And I have very, very specific reasons, which I shared with her at that time. And to do that, and then to say, tacitly what you are saying is those of us who went thumbs down were not team players, and everybody can have their own opinion about that. But I just want to put it on the record that I'm very disappointed that you did it that way, and in effect pointed to three of us as not being team players, because I can assure you that I have some very, very specific reasons, and those were shared, and I don't think this was the time to do that and point a finger at us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Attorney Bruno.
I don't have any comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Dr. Atkins, anything else?
Yeah, just a couple. I wanted to give Dr. Desimores an opportunity to respond to the question regarding PPE, and I believe she's able to do that. And then I have one other comment that I failed to mention earlier that I want to make the board aware of. So if Dr. Desimores is available, she can answer that question now.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Atkins. Yeah, hi, yes. So I believe the question was, would staff have the availability or be availed of face shields? And the answer to that question is yes. We have on hand and are stocking up on both reusable face masks and face shields for employees. So employees would be able to choose, between the option that they wanted if they did course, could also bring and encourage to bring their own face masks. Does that answer the question?
That does. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay, Dr. Atkins?
Just the last question. There's been some good questions around contact tracing and how that is done and accomplished. So we have a workshop that is going to happen on Monday, July 27th at 1 o'clock. And our Department of Health, Ms. Smith, will be there from the Department of Health to help explain contact tracing and the role of the Department of Health and how they work with the school district in order to help us make decisions. They have been, as you know, she's been on the pandemic task force. She is also one that we typically consult regarding reopening questions and questions about masks and things like that. So we just felt that with these additional questions, it would be good for the board to be able to hear directly from the Department of Health how that all happens. So just wanted to make you aware that's coming up on Monday. And that's all the comments that I have, other than thank you for the support today. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much. And so our next scheduled meetings of the board on Monday, July 27th, there will be a board workshop at 1 o'clock at which the Department of Health will be present. On Tuesday, July 28th, there'll be a board workshop at 9:30 a.m., a special board meeting to adopt the tentative fiscal year 21 budget at 5:05 p.m., as well as finally our action meeting at 6 p.m. At this point, having no further business to come before this body, I will entertain and seeing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. Okay, thank you. We don't, evidently not according to the agenda. Ms. Schaefer?
You don't have to vote to adjourn, so long as there's no objection.
Bye.
Thank you.